depending what your beliefs are and where you stand, either politically or just your outlook on life, Canada is either in a very hopeful state now that Pierre Poilievre has, been resurrected and has his job back and will make his very big comeback to the House of Canada, or Canada is doomed. And we cover a lot in this video. We're going to be taking a look at the fact that Ukraine is kind of demanding more from Canada. Like, we have to pay more and do more to help them, which is not surprising, but it is quite disappointing. Also, the Air Canada strike has come to a tentative end, and it seems like unpaid labor will now be paid, so that's good. Also, Pierre Poilievre, his resurrection came at a cost, and it came at the cost of potentially Alberta separatism because, well, he is the leader of the opposition and he does run in Alberta. And it seems like, well, he won't even be talking about that in Ottawa, which is kind of making people choose between him or separation, independence, or the independent state of or Republic of Alberta. So yeah, there's a lot to take a look at in this video, and I do hope you stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. We're just gonna jump right into it because I don't want to waste a moment on this. Here you go. Ukraine is hopeful that Canada will actively be a part of future security guarantee. Why wouldn't they? Yeah, just rely on, little old Canada to fix things. Come on, man. Ukraine would like to see Canada actively participating in future security guarantees as part of a long-term peace deal to end the Russian war. A top diplomat said on Tuesday as allies began discussing what such a plan could look like. Also, what does that even mean, Canada to be a part of guaranteeing, Ukraine's, security? Like, what the heck can Canada actually do? I understand that we've already given them, sent them, loaned them, whatever the heck it is, $20 billion worth of either cold hard cash or, tanks, beans, bullets, ammo, all that stuff. But we're not a very big country. In fact, we don't really have a whole lot to give. In fact, we have nothing to give because we are very much in debt and our economy is suffering. When's the last time you looked at house prices? When's the last time you looked at the steady increase of wages? Oh yeah, wait, that doesn't exist in this country. When's the last time you looked at the cost of blueberries or apples or even eggs from today and compared receipts to 2019? I don't understand how our government can possibly think that helping other countries with their problems, yeah, okay, ooh, it sucks you're at war. Sorry, we're here for you. Like, two hands, hey, we can help you. But sending more stuff and helping them with that is just not something that I can get behind. And that's unfortunately something that all political parties in Canada do support. And make with that what you will, but I don't think that we should be supporting Ukraine, not to the extent that we are. Peacekeeping, send, a few hundred troops, but enough with the cold hard cash and our actual, bullets and tanks and things like that. We kind of need that. We kind of do, because you never know what's going to happen. But earlier today on Tuesday, Prime Minister Carney joined a virtual meeting to discuss possible steps for securing a peace deal in Ukraine with European and other international leaders, including those who participated in Washington, D.C. with the peace talks between Zelensky, Trump, and all the European head figures. Prime Minister affirmed Canada's steadfast commitment to supporting these efforts, reinforced by further diplomatic engagements, continued military and economic pressure on Russia to end its aggression, and close coordination with Zelensky on the development of robust. Like, how can anybody possibly in Canada support that? Dude, go downtown. Just go wherever you live, go downtown, or go downtown to the closest kind of larger, medium to large town or city that you live by, and just go downtown and see all of the crackheads, all of the drug addicts, all of the homeless people, all of the crime, all the businesses that board up. Shouldn't we be worried about that instead of sending money to Gaza or even to Ukraine? Or am I crazy for thinking that we should be focusing on ourselves first? Like, that's kind of what Canada First is, yet the right, the left in this country think that, no, we should be sending more stuff to other people. And that's kind of why I've given up just a little bit of hope on this country and would kind of be okay with becoming the 51st state. But that's a story for another day. Let's now take a look at what's going on with Air Canada and the strike, because it has come to an end.
We're so happy that our flight attendants are going to get the industry-leading contract for Canadian flight attendants that they deserve. And we're incredibly happy that they're going to get the chance to have their vote heard and vote on the agreement. We're going to get the planes back in the sky. We're going to get our customers moving. And as a management team, if I may say, we know that we need to rebuild the trust and confidence of our customers and our 10,000 flight attendants.
Air Canada says flights will gradually return beginning this evening, while CUPE has advised its members to fully cooperate with resuming operations. The airline says it could still take 7 to 10 days to return to full regular service. Here to talk about the resolution of that strike is Siobhan Vipond. She's the Executive Vice President of the Canadian Labour Congress. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
What is your reaction to the news of a tentative deal? How significant is that?
It's significant. It's also good news. This is the purpose of negotiations. This is what unions are pushing for. Workers said what needed to happen, and they did it at the table as they should have been. And that's the win that we're seeing today.
Yeah. So when you say they did at the table, it's, you know, it wasn't because of arbitration in terms of binding arbitration. But CUPE did say today that, as I mentioned, unpaid labor is over for flight attendants, even though we don't have details of that. And Air Canada is saying that to CBC News today that it's an industry-leading deal on the table in terms of the ground work compensation. I don't know whether you know anything about the details of the deal. Can you tell us anything that you might have heard, or what might we expect to see in the deal that will be taken to members for ratification?
Yeah, I mean, the big one is and what we've been hearing about is that unpaid work won't fly, right? And so that's what's happened, is they are happy with the tentative deal and I think bringing it to the members, because it does undo what I think most people are appalled for, right? Like, it was like, what do you mean you're not getting paid? Like, what do you mean, like, we have to move? And especially in these days of planes sitting in tarmacs for a long time or sitting at the gate for a long time, it's like, and you're not getting paid. Like, that is the most basic of what needs to happen. So we know that they've thrown that on the head, and they feel proud that they have gotten to a negotiated deal that they'll be able to present to their members. And so once we see what once the members have their say, then we will know exactly what those details are. But I think it is a good day when, unions, their members come together, they push back to make sure that they're getting a deal that's good for the job and good for them.
Okay, so it was 9 months of talks, many of those months stalled talks, 9 hours overnight into the wee hours. I know you weren't in the room, or I don't think you were in the room, no. We did see a statement from the Canadian Labour Congress earlier today saying essentially that you believe that what the pivotal catalyst was the CUPE being willing to defy the back-to-work order. Why do you feel that was the impetus for actually getting a deal?
Well, like, introducing 107 was an overstep by Carney and the government, because they were interfering in the process of negotiations. So once that happened, they needed to back away, because the idea of going on strike is to put pressure on. But we heard from the CEO of Air Canada, they felt no pressure, because they were just going to make a phone call and get 107, and then they thought then it's just going to be done. So their goal wasn't actually to negotiate a deal. But then once those workers stood up and said, actually, no, we are going to take our right to strike, we're going to do it, and we're going to take our labor away, which is the power of workers, then guess what ends up happening is you have to go to the table, you have to find a solution, and the solution is a deal. So yeah, pressure, it happened, but that is the power of the negotiating table. And whenever government oversteps by introducing 107 like this, it is interfering with that process and the balance of power.
Now,
so are you saying that the government using what could be deemed as like almost emergency powers is an abuse of power, and it disrupts the balance of democracy in this country? Because that's what I'm hearing. That's what I saw. That's what I witnessed. And now we're seeing that for once, the government is getting put in their place, and so is a big corporation in Canada that mistreats its employees. It's quite a phenomenal story. I know a lot of conservatives or people that have conservative values are kind of anti-union. I've been seeing a lot of that rhetoric on X. I don't really subscribe to like the kind of mob mentality, what I should or shouldn't be for or against. What I saw was people that were underpaid, and knowing people that work or worked in the flight industry, specifically as flight attendants. I really felt like this was wrong, and they should have been paid. And I was in support of the strike, and I still am. What I do find, though, on top of that, which is quite interesting, is yesterday you had kind of both sides of the party were saying that they were willing to kind of die on this hill, right? The strike, the flight attendants that were on strike were saying, or specifically the union, the COOP, leader, whatever, was saying that he was ready to go to jail. And everyone that was around him when he said that cheered, yay, as if they also were willing to go to jail, which is one thing to actually say that, and another thing to actually experience that, which I don't think many of them would have been ready emotionally and physically for that process to have taken place. But it never got to that point. And on the other side of it, you had the Air Canada CEO on the record say that exactly he was going to call the prime minister and say, you know what, we need you to use your kind of emergency powers, Article 107, and get this done. And it all backfired on them. Luckily, it worked out at least this time, but it's not yet set in stone. This is an interim deal while negotiations do kind of get a little bit more solidified. So don't be crazily surprised if this somehow falls through and the strike continues. But again, I do hope that there is a resolution sooner than later. And that's my opinion. I would love to know yours. And then we're going to shift away from Air Canada. We're going to take a look at something else, because not too long ago, Prime Minister Carney actually praised Donald Trump as ministers jetted off to Sweden to talk about defense deals.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is praising what he calls an openness by the U.S. to provide security guarantees to Ukraine without clarifying what those could be. In a statement, Carney said robust and credible security guarantees are essential to any just and lasting peace between Russia and Ukraine. No deal was struck yesterday when U.S. President Donald Trump met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. But we are learning more about what did happen between the two leaders and what might happen next. Candace Cole reports.
There's no deal until there's a deal.
U.S. President Donald Trump's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin Friday yielded no tangible results in terms of peace for Ukraine, as the two heads of state met in Anchorage without Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky present. Speaking during a press conference where no questions were allowed, Putin told reporters all of Russia's concerns must be addressed and called for a, quote, fair balance of security for Europe and the world.
And Mr. Putin got what he wanted. He's back on stage. He could meet with the leader of the Western world.
Political scientist Clemens Fisher says the meeting between Trump and Putin was more about peace between the U.S. and Russia. Ukraine was merely an excuse for the two superpowers to hold court.
For Ukraine, it was a very sad moment, because at the end of the day, Ukraine wasn't even on the table as a chance to see that they might possibly get a truce or a ceasefire. Nothing was on the table.
But now Zelensky is poised to meet with Trump Monday in the Oval Office after a conversation with Trump late Friday, during which Trump reportedly told him Putin would freeze the front lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia in exchange for the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Saturday, Trump praised his meeting with Putin, saying the best way to end the war between Russia and Ukraine is to broker a peace agreement rather than a ceasefire, which, quote, oftentimes do not hold up. It's a reversal from Trump's past efforts. Putin has long said Moscow is not interested in a temporary truce. Zelensky, in a post on X, says he and Trump are coordinating with European leaders, but says a lasting peace must be achieved. He's called for stronger sanctions against Russia if Putin acts in bad faith and greater security guarantees from the U.S. and EU.
For the Europeans,
which includes
I think,
Canada
one of
as well.
the last calls to wake up and to start building up the armed forces again, because they have to do anything to show deterrence against the Russians.
Monday's meeting with Trump will be...
Oh my goodness. I'm just so sick and tired. I'm so sick and tired. I'm sorry. I've seen Canada dish out so much money to other countries' problems when we have so many of our own. I'm sorry if that seems crazy, but I also am not sorry because that's just my opinion. I'd love to know yours. I think there's a lot of people that do agree with me, though. So do agree with me though. So let me know where you guys stand. And then in very small and repetitive news, you have the Green Party leader, Elizabeth May, who has announced that she will resign as the Green Party leader before the next federal election. And when you take a look at the comments on anyone's post, you have, so many people are saying that she's done this so many times. Even Marty up north says, and give up her booze expense account, never, because Lizzie Dizzy has that nickname for a reason. And it's just kind of funny to see her saying the same thing over and over for so long and essentially never doing it. But hey, that's politicians for you. And then we're going to talk about Pierre Poilievre and Alberta. So I took to X this morning and I posted this poll right here. If you had to pick one, which would you rather? Pierre Poilievre as prime minister, or would you rather have Alberta independence? And there's only 2,000 votes, which is a little bit more than what Nanos gets on their polling stuff. But 52% said Alberta independence and 47.5% said Pierre Poilievre as prime minister. So why is that important? Well, because Pierre Poilievre, when he campaigned in this by-election, it was around the premise of almost all the same talking points, like literally to the T as when he campaigned in the federal election a few months ago. The only thing that was kind of new was the rise of Alberta independence and sovereignty. And he did kind of squash that in a way where he's like, Alberta will always be a part of Canada, or should always be a part of Canada, and that's just kind of that. He never said, I said that I acknowledge that Albertans feel wronged and we're going to fix that in Ottawa. And when the room of Albertans hear that, they think, well, that's what we've been promised and told, and it's never ever happened in Alberta's favor. And so you got a guy from Ottawa, arguably an elitist politician, coming to Alberta and saying, hey, we're going to make life better for you. And I just don't know if Albertans feel that way. Just facts over feelings, right? He had a phenomenal turnout, 82% or 80% voter win margin. That's great. He checked a lot of boxes. But the sentiment is still there that Alberta's separation, Alberta independence will not get even recognized at the federal level by the leader of the opposition, who now represents the voices of Alberta. So is he not doing his job properly by ignoring what people in his riding are wanting to say? Well, let's have a look, because these people break it down.
And 80% to 82.5%, he did a great job, and now he's going back to where he needs to be, which is in the House of Commons, to be able to debate against the Prime Minister and showcase his talents once again.
Graham, how does this outcome play against the growing separatist movement in the province? Are there takeaways in that regard?
Well, it's interesting, yes. So the thing is, though, separation was never really a big issue in this campaign. There are people in the riding, who want to separate, no doubt, and that's an issue right now on provincial politics, really being pushed by the Premier, Danielle Smith. But it came to this actual by-election, though, it wasn't a big issue. Some were talking about it, and Pierre Poilievre had said, look, he's against separation. He called himself a Canadian patriot. Now, that did ruffle some feathers among the separatists. But, he said, look, you have grievances, legitimate grievances. I agree with, sympathize with you. It's all the federal Liberals' fault. And so that, he could deflect it. So he wasn't playing that game. And he isn't going to play the game going forward. He's not taking a separatist message to Ottawa. Obviously, he managed to diffuse that issue, but again, it's not really, to me, it's not a big issue in Alberta politics. Even provincially, most Albertans are against it. So it's more an issue where people were talking about it, especially outside of Alberta. How big will the separation issue be? I think Poilievre may get cross-threaded with Danielle Smith on some issues going down the road, because he's going to be talking to Canadians generally, not just Albertans, and Smith can talk to just Albertans on these issues. So to me, separation wasn't a big issue. It's more of an issue provincially, but not at the federal level. I think that he managed to sidestep that landmine very adroitly.
Stacey, with the clock now ticking, Stacey, on the January leadership review.
I understand that Pierre Poilievre is a federal politician, but I also like to still live under the beliefs that if a politician is going to represent you at the municipal, provincial, or federal level, they're there to voice the concerns of what people in that riding have. And Battle River Crowfoot, there is a lot of sentiment for independence of this, the state, the Republic of Alberta. And that's not being even voiced. That's not even really being recognized by this politician. And for some reason that just irks me, because if I lived in that area and I now had a parachute candidate coming in who was ignoring a massive kind of movement that's taking place, not only in the province, but specifically in that area, I think that that would anger me quite a bit. I'd feel a little bit betrayed, right? I understand federal politician has bigger things. He's running as prime minister again, right? And why should he worry about what the small fringe minority has to say? And I still don't subscribe to that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too new to politics and I can't see the bigger picture. But what I look for in any politician is accurate representation and a voice amplification of those that live in that riding, no matter what the consequences really are, because that's your job. You're a megaphone. You become a bulletin board for the general public. You don't even have to be like a free thinker to be a politician. Or you're literally a stand-in for all of the voices that you represent. That's literally your job. It's like condensing what everyone that you represent has to say into a person who then regurgitates that information at a higher level. Maybe I'm an idiot. I probably am, but that's just how I view politics. That's my understanding of politics. That's what I look for in politics. That's what I like about politics. And I'm not really seeing that anymore. And that's what really breaks my heart about this.
How much of a guarantee do you feel Monday's outcome stamps on Pierre Poilievre leading the party into the next federal election?
Well, I don't think he has a lot to worry about. I always hesitate being equivocal like that because, I mean, it is politics and things can change radically quickly overnight. But I think he's in a very comfortable, very secure position. There's no indication from any of his caucus of dissent. I think that, people will.
No, there isn't. And I have a theory that's backed by my own thought process that his own MPs are a little bit afraid of speaking up against him because there is nobody that even has 1/10 of the amount of popularity that Pierre does. And if anyone comes out and criticizes their boss or does any of that stuff, then it's going to be viewed as a sign of, you're out for blood and they could potentially lose their job or just overall be silenced. When Justin Trudeau used to say to Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons, at least I don't muzzle my MPs like you do. Do you remember when he said that? That went over my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? Pierre doesn't muzzle his MPs. There's no way that he does that. Come on, Trudeau, get your head out of your ass. That's not even a true thing. And then time goes on and we start to see certain behaviors within the Conservative caucus, within the Conservative cabinet, and the messaging, the timing of a lot of things that these MPs have to say publicly, like through X and stuff like that, it's all very strategically timed. So that makes me think, okay, so they're getting these briefings. And then, of course, having a channel with almost 500,000, people that have subscribed, I get approached by a lot of different people. And I'm not going to say I have a lot of connections, but I do have information from the inside. And there is a bit of muzzling that happens within the Conservative Party. And so in hindsight, Justin Trudeau had a point when he would say that Pierre Poilievre muzzles his employees because his MPs are not allowed to be their own individual spokesperson. Everything is in the morning time. They get a brief. Here's what you can talk about. Here's what you can't talk about, and go on about the day like that. And if you talk about this, then it has to be structured like that. And that is unfortunately a form of muzzling. And so that's why you're seeing the Conservatives' messaging instead of it being kind of people are saying what they want, how they want, when they want, it's all being filtered to look exactly the same. I don't really like that in politicians or in politics. Again, I'm allowed to have my own perspectives and you guys are allowed to have your own perspectives. But what I look for in any politician, I don't care who it is honesty and a genuine person. And I understand there is a strategy to be had, especially at the federal level. But I think that it's the wrong move to not have, a genuine approach to politics, to sharing their opinions. I would like to see, I haven't even really heard publicly from Jamil Javani. And he was like Pierre Poilievre's like right-hand guy for a little bit, but he didn't make the inner circle. So there's just a lot of these little things that have been happening time and time again that make me realize that the Conservative Party is so overly micromanaged that they sometimes can be their own worst enemy. And this is all coming from love. Like, this isn't me saying, oh, they're horrible and they're going to lose. This is all like trying to be constructive feedback instead of me yelling, which we know I'm very good at and I like to do frequently. I'm trying to have a bit more of a softer approach to get my point across in, a bit more of a professional way. And I could be very wrong, but that's just how I see the Conservative Party, specifically under Pierre Poilievre, handling politics. And I think that it's wrong. But again, I could very well be wrong. And then we're going to end this video off with something that is actually wrong. Like, there's a rise of Nazism apparently in Canada, specifically within our Canadian Armed Forces. Ah, my goodness. Canadian soldiers have apparently been suspended after a Nazi salute video surfaces, which is insane. One, that a Nazi salute happened. Two, that all of our politicians literally stood up in Parliament and applauded a Nazi. And none of them got suspended. Like, every single politician, all 338 members and everybody up in the gallery got up and applauded a Nazi. And that just got swept under the rug. It got swept under the rug. So if you have one of those stickers, if I did not see that coming, hold on to that, because that's a gem. That's going to go down in history as the weirdest thing that's ever happened in Canadian politics. The Canadian military suspended 5 active members after a video emerged allegedly showing them with other individuals who give Nazi salutes. Lieutenant General Mike Wright, the head of the Canadian Army, said in a statement issued Tuesday that he was deeply disturbed and profoundly disappointed by the contents of the video, which he said he has been made aware of on August 6th. Wright said soon after the video was shared with the Canadian Armed Forces, a member of the public, 5 serving members were identified who have now been suspended from military duties while a disciplinary investigation is underway. The matter was then referred to military police. According to the Army commander, one individual can be seen performing a drill in front of the flag of the Royal 22nd Regiment, which is based in Quebec City. What is going on with Quebec, huh? There's so many people. It even continues down here in the article. Men with military ties arrested in July for violent extremism. And I believe that was based out of Quebec. Yeah. Pont Rouge, Quebec. Oh, my goodness. So there's just a lot of craziness that's happening across the country. People are being radicalized or going through extremist things, or the goalposts are being moved to be deemed extremist. I'm not condoning any form of Nazi salute, but just remember that every single politician, Liberal, NDP, Bloc Québécois, Independent, and the Conservatives, including Pierre Poilievre, stood up in front of Zelensky, who all members of Parliament also glorify, and they all applauded a Nazi, and nothing ever came of it.